Hi, everybody. Dion Major here, CEO of Inside Sales by Design, as well as salesclass.ai. And thank you for joining our podcast, Universal Sales Truths. We started this podcast to share stories and journeys of universal sales truths, meaning what was true to forge a relationship with clients in the past. It was true in the past and will be true today and will be true tomorrow. And so we're bringing guests to you and speakers that have amazing backgrounds and experience to share pieces and parts of their journey and their stories. And we know that you will be inspired and you will learn something and hopefully get some folks to connect with as well, and broaden your circle and your network, because that's what this life and world is all about, are the human connections we make at the end of the day. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to the Universal Sales Truth podcast. And we hope to hear from you soon. And I know that you're going to leave inspired. Hi, everybody. Dion Major here, your founder of Inside Sales by Design with Monica. You are going to love this conversation today. We are bringing you some more universal sales truths from our Universal Sales Truth podcast. And we're talking about the different aha moments and along the journey we have here with Monica. And what is a good universal sales truth, right? So Monica, I know we had started and I want to turn it back over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, sure, Dion. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, universal sales truths. I mean, there's so many, right?
Yes, there are. But tell us a little bit about you and your background and, maybe the top 2 or 3 aha moments in your career that are top of mind for you.
Yeah, I think so. I've been doing sales development, inside sales, and leading teams for about 14 years now in the e-clinical space and pharmaceutical research, working on the vendor side. And prior to that, I was selling education. And I think, sort of the moments that stand out the most is, I think, realizing that time is everything in sales. And when you're carrying a bag, not to use a super old term, but when you're carrying a bag, you don't always have time to be thinking about next quarter and what you should be doing for next quarter. You're really worried about this current quarter. And I think realizing that the inside sales piece, which back when I was selling education and carrying a bag, I didn't realize how beneficial inside sales or sales development could be for a salesperson in an organization, right?
Yeah.
And creating a category in a market that maybe had never considered this as an option, right? So, when I joined an organization in the e-clinical space, the really key point, I looked around and I said, well, who's worried about tomorrow? We've got all these people worried about today, but who's worried about tomorrow? And being worried about tomorrow is really important. How are we building pipeline and focus and engaging with customers in a valuable way, so that when there's an opportunity there, you're able to move forward with it in the future if it's not there today, right? So developing inside sales programs and inside sales teams in this space where it wasn't the norm, sort of kind of provided me with a springboard in my career, because now every vendor in our space wants to start the sales development inside sales thing. And so just kind of being a little bit creative in where do you fit within an organization and finding a truth in something that's not the norm, but it still follows the same principles.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really, really important topic, Monica, which is there are overarching principles that apply to any genre, right? Any profession, if you will. There are certain table stakes that you have to have right?
Yep.
And so as you've kind of gone through your career, what kind of helped to define and shape where you are and kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the success factor. We're able to measure, right? We're able
Yes.
to measure the value. And so measurement's important in any sales role, being able to measure like not only what we do individually and looking at what are the right criteria to measure, but also being able to measure the dollar value, the total lifetime dollar value that a different approach provides to an organization.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, being able to see that success where in new regions or net new logos, we were able to go and eventually close business where maybe they would have never known about us, right? Or they wouldn't have been educated in such a way where they see us as a leader in the space that they may never have purchased. And so being able to kind of define what that measurement is and being successful at the role enables you to grow into leadership and build teams similar and be sought after in the space.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I think all of that is so good when you build, when you start and then build and you see the results at the end of the
Mhm.
day, right? So, are those some of the things that you enjoy about sales, or what are some of the things that you enjoy about the sales profession?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like a sales development I see in a lot of different verticals as like a stepping stone into sales. And I think into a sales role, like you look around and you say, well, like how if I can't get the job if I've never sold, but I need the job to have the experience to sell. So sales development is a great stepping stone. And I think for me, the most rewarding thing in my career has been to take some of the lessons that I've learned over time and some of the universal sales truths that I've learned over time,
Yeah.
and kind of help develop other folks. I typically go and look for people outside of industry because I think if you have good sales chops, if you have really good sales chops, but you've never had a sales job, maybe it's like an outlier career where maybe it's you've worked in retail or you've been a really, really strong someone in a wait staff industry at a really good restaurant. You're salespeople, but maybe you just need to learn, the industry and being able to take those folks and help elevate them into a role that enables them then to grow into a sales role, and to see how successful they can be in their career. I think that's for me one of the most rewarding things is I grow by helping others grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's fun. It's fun to go down that path and you see people and you see their confidence grow and you see all of us, I would say, gaining a new skill set, right? It's pretty cool to see all that.
Yeah.
So as of today, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and when we talk
Yeah.
in 6 months and do another one, it might be different. But as of today,
Mhm.
what would you say is top of mind, like the number one universal sales truth for you and your team and kind of where you're all at today?
I mean, so it's probably like in the landscape that we sit in at this current time.
Yeah.
It's leading with grace, and it's recognizing that the world we live in today, and some of the challenges, especially in sales, right? Everyone's doing inside sales right now because we're likely not going and seeing our customers as much, but leading our teams with grace and recognizing that our personal lives are bleeding into our work lives, and that's okay, as long as we enable the grace for that, for our teams to grow in the right way. Let's face it, we should trust the people that work for us. We should trust that they're doing the right thing. And for me, it's really around the culture of the team,
Yeah.
ensuring that they feel supported, ensuring that if they've got 37 things to juggle that day, that I'm there to help, but also to say it's okay, go do what you have to do. Those people work harder for you when they come back to their desk. And so being the right kind of leader for what my team needs at that moment in time, I think this probably could go for any role, not just sales, but the job that one of the universal truths I think in sales is it's hard work.
Yes.
And not only should we be rewarding that through compensation and salary and recognition and acknowledgement, but also rewarding that through trust and having that graceful leadership approach, or some compassion around what people might be going through. You'll see the numbers shoot through the roof when they feel appreciated in that way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Monica, just through and through. Right. I always, when I talk with folks, and, there's this mushing for the month end number. And, to your point too, where you were talking about, it's like, yeah, well, everybody's worried about today, but what about tomorrow? What about next quarter, next
Yep.
year? Right. Like long term, right. I get short term horizon. Somebody's got to have an eye to the long term horizon. Right.
Right.
But I think to your point too, I share with folks, hey, we mush dogs in a dog sled. We don't mush people.
Right.
There's a difference, I mean, there's a difference
Right.
between having a sense of urgency and drive versus mushing, to your point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And I think grace is in short supply these days across the
Sure
board.
is. I've had feedback, from folks that I've talked to where they say, I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. And I think it's a good thing to be aware of, because I am, I have to give it to myself as well. I'm an overachiever, I'm a perfectionist, and sometimes I have to let that go a little bit. But I think what it ends up being is this, environment that we're working in, and this landscape. I think this piece of it could be a blessing in disguise, where teams come closer together. And, I think the other piece of it is when somebody needs me to provide some grace and they need to, whatever it is, take a minute. If I can jump in and cover for them at that point, that again, that bond is stronger, where they know I'm in the trenches with them. They don't work for me, I work for them. That's sort of the way I view the leadership piece. And I'm here to support their efforts, because if they don't have someone to be their mouthpiece and the person that goes and gets the things they need to be successful, we miss an opportunity, right? So again, I think leadership and the way leadership operates, in sales in particular, is something that has changed over the years, but still remains the same. It's my role to help you succeed. It's not your role to help me look good as a manager, right?
Correct. 100%.
And I think, all this sort of like looking in the mirror sometimes is a requirement, and it's different. I think it'll be much different even moving forward. My team is always remote, but at the end of the day, like, this is a different kind of remote.
This is a different kind of remote. Yes, 100%. 100%. So I think those are amazing pearls of wisdom that everybody can definitely learn from, all of us, right? Myself included, where I will find myself going through a cycle where I'm holding on too tight, right? Because I've got 85 plates spinning, whether it's for home or work or kids or, whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, hang on a second. And I don't always do a good job of that self-awareness, right? Self-realization. We were talking before. And so I think just all of us, a little bit of grace and, some laundry piled up and, phone calls pushed to a next day or whatever. Like, as much as we may not like all of that, to your point, there's grace in there, as long as we are communicating and just moving forward, right, as much as we can. And the fact that, oh, by the way, your kids are coming home tomorrow, or we got this, or we got that, or shut down this, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. So let's, it'll be,
it does all come back to value. And I think you value your team, right? Yeah. You show that when you do that, but that connects to sales, right? Because again, you can go back 500 years or go ahead 30 years. And what you're always going to have is selling on value. It has to be about value. Everything you do has to be about value. Right. I'm not going to buy a car, spend $50,000 on a car if I don't see that there's something in it for me. What do I gain out of it? And so again, these things all sort of tie together. But to me, the biggest universal sales truth is how do you communicate value? How do you drive the messaging around what really is the value, whether you're selling pencils or, you're selling eClinical solutions, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I again, Monica, just brilliant words of wisdom, right? And yeah, brilliant. And yeah, I think sometimes our ego and pride, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, right? Where sometimes I don't always pick up on the undercurrent that sometimes people just need a little reassurance.
Mhm.
Right. And
Mhm.
it really took me a long time. Like, why are you hesitating? Just go do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, but there was that sometimes we all need a little bit of cheerleading in our corner, if you
Yeah.
will. And those, to
Yep.
your point, showing value, the reassurance,
Mhm.
um, the articulation of, yeah, we got this, you know?
Right.
So I think there's something to be said for that and stating the obvious in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
good.
For sure.
I
Love
like
it.
it. All right, everybody. How should Monica? How should everybody get in touch with you? What is the best way?
Yeah. So I can be reached via email, probably best. Monica Venturella, MonicaVenturella @gmail.com.
I love it. Everybody, Monica is super open, as we talk about on every podcast, right? Is just connect
Yep.
and go from there, have conversations. I get asked a lot of times of, Dion, how did you get to where you're at? I'm sure Monica, how, you know, that's the beauty, to your point, of giving back, right? After you do
Yeah.
things for a little bit, hopefully people come to us and say, hey, let's talk about your journey, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we want to do, is encourage conversation in whatever way, shape, fashion, or form they're taking these days. So everybody, thank
Sure.
you so much for tuning in and joining us today, Monica. As always, it's amazing to talk with you. We could just sit here and do this for hours and hours and hours, and it would
I
be
know.
amazing. So I
I know.
hope
I love
everybody has
it.
a great day, and thank you.
Thanks, Dion.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the Universal Sales Truth Podcast. Please make sure that you subscribe to our podcast so you're notified of updates. You can also find this content on the Inside Sales by Design YouTube channel. So make sure you take a look at that. It'll also be in the salesclass.ai platform for you and your teams. And please make sure to reach out and connect with myself and the speaker you heard today individually. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and contact us if there's anything you specifically want to hear or know about. Thank you so much, and enjoy your day.